other method, and this is where we do provide scripts for that. So those scripts are going to be going live tomorrow at 9 a.m., the same time that the replay for this session is going live as well. Just understand that when you are cold calling apartments, all of this is about numbers. It's all about numbers. The more complexes you call, the more yeses you are going to get. Obviously, the more no's you're going to get as well. But the more calls that you're making and the quicker you are making those calls, the quicker you are going to be able to actually locate a unit to list. So if you are someone who's saying that my deadline or my goal, my timeline to get into my unit is anytime before December 1st, you need to be making a good number of calls each and every week between now and then, so that you are getting the most touch points so that you can get the most yeses in terms of actually looking at the scope of what are my options for getting started. So when calling, it's great to contact the apartment complex, but if you are able to find the property management group, that's even better, meaning that you are able to go on their site and they might already be listing that. The leasing tracker. The leasing tracker is provided. Exactly. That's provided in the Facebook group. But yes, so if you can get in contact with the management group, that is absolutely even better, whether that's on the phone or whether that's email address. Getting in contact with them is going to help because they are likely the ones who, even when you contact the apartment complex, the leasing agents are then going to lean on in terms of that knowledge of, well, do we accept corporate leasing applications? Asking them and going directly to the source is going to be really helpful. Really, all that you are doing when you are asking, for all of you at this point, you are just asking, do they accept corporate leasing or not? Whether they accept it or are they familiar with corporate leasing? That is how you are framing that question. If they say yes, that is when that conversation then goes a little bit further and you begin talking more about your business model. But if they say no, that is absolutely where the conversation ends. You can hang up. It's a thank you. Okay, cool. Because they are not accepting it. Now, if you're someone who you're saying, you know what, in addition to looking at the corporate leasing method, I'm also just looking at, I might be open to flying under the radar because in the city that I'm starting in, I've heard that that works, that people can get away with it. Up to you. But again, that is somewhere where you may be able to know, hey, they are not accepting corporate leases, but it looks like that they have open parking. I can change the lock on the door. The apartment complex is pretty large. At that point, they're showing all of the indicators that, okay, I might be able to actually fly under the radar successfully with this. But again, I leave that discretion up to you all in terms of making that decision for me. So just make sure that as you are calling and making these touch points, again, you are utilizing the leasing tracker spreadsheet to actually keep track of it. As a heads up, the leasing tracker that is linked within all of your roadmap documents is the leasing tracker for corporate leasing and getting started with that method. If you are someone who you are also looking to get started with finding Airbnb friendly apartments, meaning apartments that may not accept corporate leasing and may not even accept Airbnb, however, it seems like they are set up in a way that they do not mind it, there is a leasing tracker that we provide for that as well, and that is going to be go active within the course platform tomorrow at 9 a.m. too. So you all will have those and we will call them out to you.
Sorry, quick question. What do you mean by Airbnb friendly, but they don't accept Airbnb?
So again, so just what I mentioned, meaning they don't accept Airbnb, but they've set their apartment complex up in a way where they do not mind, meaning that you go in and you are able to get away with that.
Got it.
Yeah, that is what I mean by Airbnb friendly. They're set up, like they're physically set up in a way where your guests can get in and out without them actually having an issue or you having to pass off that fob.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Now, I want to quickly dive into just the main script that I will be showing you all how to utilize. Let me just stop sharing. So I want to dive into this script because this is the primary script you're going to be using when you are calling. And for most of you, again, this initial conversation is pretty much just looking like, hey, do you accept corporate leasing or not? But as you begin having more of these conversations and you might receive a yes, things dive a little bit deeper. That is then when you want to then dive more into this actual script. So let me go ahead and share this. So for many of you, when you are calling these apartment complexes, your goal is to receive an application. Initially, this is your first goal. Your goal is not to like get a yes and have them say yes to your business model and you move in at the end of the week. Your number one goal is to receive an application and just understand the requirements that they have in order to actually apply. So number one, in terms of what those steps look like, you are calling to confirm that corporate lease application. So you are asking, do you accept corporate leases? So this is just an overview of those steps. And then we're going to dive into the exact script. So number one, do you accept corporate leases? Okay, then number two, that second question is going to be, what are the parameters that your property has in place around corporate leasing? And are there any limitations that I should be aware of? So this is where you are beginning to get that initial idea of if they have a certain limit on how many nights the guests have to stay, or whether or not they actually prohibit Airbnb. So again, that very first question is, do you accept corporate leasing? And if they do, what are the parameters that your property has in place around corporate leasing? This is where we're then getting into what those restrictions are related to third-party booking sites. And also, if they do say, okay, yes, we do accept corporate leasing, we do have a couple of parameters. Here are those parameters. Request that they then email you that application in addition to what those requirements are. Either you're noting them yourself or you're asking them to send you over those requirements. But if they do accept corporate leasing and they are saying these are the parameters, and those parameters do not sound like they are completely out of the ballpark for you, actually requesting them to send you an email application is going to help, because you are going to get more familiar with what these applications look like. Just because you are requesting an application does not mean that you are confirming and locking yourself in to actually apply. FYI. Seeing an application, again, is only going to make you more comfortable, because these applications can look a lot different. Some of them are actually going to ask questions to try to trip you up. If you are in our Facebook group, you might see some of those previous posts where we speak a little bit about those. We show some of the examples, but they might ask questions to try to trip you up. Completely fine, just to get an idea of, if you're trying to do corporate leasing, they're trying to get an idea of whether or not you're trying to do Airbnb. Because again, some of them accept corporate leasing, but they prohibit Airbnb. And we'll talk about that as well. So then once you actually do that, and what just this entire process looks like, let's say that you receive the application, you've spoken with them, they accept corporate leasing, and it's like, all right, this application looks all right. I think I might want to apply. Again, we're not just going to apply, because we want to qualify the apartment complex, qualify the space as much as possible. Because number one, we all know that application, actually submitting an application, comes with the application fee that we want to try to not pay and then lose that money, because it's not refundable. But for the most part, again, we are qualifying the space as much as we can before actually submitting that application, so that we can ensure a yes as quickly as possible. But yes, after you actually get that application, you say, you know what, I'm thinking about applying. I feel like this space is going to be pretty good. Go and see the space to qualify it. So this is where you're getting into asking these questions, and these are listed within our leasing tracker as well. Is there a fob that they have to use to get in and out of the building? Meaning, is there a fob that you have to get at the gate, and then into the door, and then into the parking? That is going to make it a lot harder to then actually support your business model, meaning having short-term guests in and out, because you don't want to have to meet those guests each time to pass off a fob. So is there a fob? Is there not a fob? Is there parking? Again, this is where what you have in mind when you are actually going to see the apartment. This is what you're looking for. This is not necessarily the overt question that you're asking to them, but just what you are going to look for when you're getting the apartment tour and what have you. Is there a fob? How does the parking situation work? Is it open? Is it parking? Is it a parking deck where they have to have a code to get in? Do they need a fob to get into parking as well? How does that work? Are you able to change the lock on the door? Meaning, are you able to change it from just using a key to actually turning it into an automated lock or a keypad lock? How large is the space? Meaning, how large is the apartment complex? But even furthermore, just how large is the actual apartment complex or the actual apartment unit in terms of the space that is providing between each unit? Because let's say you do have some guests, and maybe it is a small family that you're now catering to for this weekend. You want to make sure that they are not able to I guess, causing too much of a noise for other people who are actual residents within this space to be disturbed. And now they're complaining about the partnership that you've now created with this apartment complex. That doesn't create a good look, again, just for our business. And then again, just location and proximity to things that matter. These are things that you are keeping in mind when you are going to see this apartment complex. So how close are they to a gas station? How close are they to, I don't know, shopping malls, to the city center? How close are they to the actual interstate? These are all things and questions that are going to matter to potential guests that you could have. So again, once you actually go and see this place, that is when it's like, all right, I've now confirmed this information. It seems like this is still a good fit. Now, at this point, I am going to then go about submitting this corporate lease application. I may already have it, I may not. They might be providing it on the spot, but you're letting them know that your company, because you have a company, each of you have set that up, your company is actually looking to expand in that area and you want to acquire some units within that space, if possible. In the instance that they say no, meaning that they say no to corporate leasing, or they say no to, okay, your business model isn't something that we support right now. Do you know any complexes that do offer corporate leasing? Does your management company have other units that actually allow it? Because sometimes it's a matter of at that apartment complex, they don't, but they have many apartment complexes within that area or within the city, what have you, and they might not allow it at that particular one, but at another one on the other side of town, they do. So just making sure that you are actually asking these questions, because the complexes, again, they might still ask for that information on whether or not people are staying within that space. And we're going to talk about just how you combat that in a bit. But again, just understanding that you are not necessarily subleasing. What you're doing is really taking on a license to use their said space under your business's name for residential purposes. And there is a big difference in the legal sense when you are talking about subleasing versus actually signing a corporate lease to use their space. So from that overview of the steps, when you see this document, it then dives into, okay, what does this script look like when I am calling? Again, I have told you all already, when you use this script, please try your best not to read it word for word because it is going to sound scripted. Add your own flair to it. Add your own twang, like actually show your personality a little bit, because I promise you that is really what's going to close the deal a lot more than you having the exact words of what to say. It is going to be your personality and them actually building a rapport with you. So when you're calling, again, hey, if I'm on the phone, hey, my name is Precious Price with whatever my business's name is. For me, that's what it is here in Atlanta, Georgia. Where are you located, right? How are you? You're starting it off and you're getting them to start talking. The problem that a lot of people have, especially starting out with trying to have these conversations, is they get on the phone and they're doing too much talking on their end. Only give the information that they need. Don't overshare. So yes, hey, my name is Precious. I am a sourcing specialist with my business, or my name is just Precious and I'm with this company. They don't need to know what you do for it, right? Because again, even positioning yourself as the owner of the company sometimes can cause a little bit of a strife, right? And Tina, I'm looking at you when you say it, when I'm saying this, because I recall during your experience, and I want you to speak to it, about with you being a realtor, you started to find that saying you were a realtor rather than saying I'm with this company worked a lot better. Can you see that? Cool. It looks like we're not hearing anything anymore. Okay, perfect. So from that point, if we're just doing some quick cold calling, we're going to go ahead and after they respond with the how are you, obviously they might ask how are you doing as well, answer, add a little padding in the start, right? Just again, build a little bit of rapport. And then at that point, you're doing some quick cold calling. You're saying, I'm calling to confirm whether or not your property accepts corporate lease agreements. That is the first question. Would you be the person that I speak with about that? So you are not necessarily, again, initially getting on the phone and asking them, do you accept corporate leasing? Because the important part in regards to this, again, is that this may not be the person that you need to speak with about corporate leasing in the first place. Most times the leasing agents are not the people who know whether or not they're even accepting corporate leasing, because they're not running those applications. It's typically the property manager, the assistant property manager, or someone above them that's actually doing that. So your first question is, would you be the person that I actually speak to about that? If they are that person, at that point, then you're saying, all right, perfect. Do you all accept that? Do you all accept corporate leasing applications? What are the requirements for a corporate leasing application at your property? So this is when you're then getting into whether or not they're going to be pulling your business's credit, whether or not they are an apartment complex that attempts to attach your own name in addition to your business's name on that leasing agreement. In addition to just getting the idea of what do you need to get in? Is there an application fee attached? That is an initial question that you should be asking as well, because that's going to give you an idea of, am I even in a position to apply to this? Some of their application fees might be outrageous, specifically for those of you that are looking within city centers, you're looking downtown, whatever it is, those are likely going to be upwards of, I'm going to say $150 to $200, just because they get such a larger volume of people applying. And that corporate leasing fee is then going to kind of speak to the number of people or the traffic that they have with actually people asking about corporate leasing and applying. If it's higher, then that's going to be an indicator that more people do actually apply to corporate leases at that space. If it's a little on the lower end, that is then going to speak to that actually being not a complex where people are applying at a crazy rate. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply. It's just that people are not applying at a crazy rate there. So they can answer that question. And then at that point, you are asking, are there any parameters or limitations our company should be aware of? This is, again, where you're getting into the restrictions, right? Parameters meaning like they might at this point mention, yeah, we actually don't allow Airbnb, or yeah, we actually have to have those guests, each guest that comes through and stays, they have to stay for at least 30 days within our apartment complex. This is what you're beginning to, I guess, pull at when you are asking this question. Again, we still have not asked this, do you do Airbnb question? And that is honestly a question, or even when we specifically say Airbnb, that's not even something that we bring up in this initial conversation. You won't even see the word Airbnb in this initial conversation. And then just getting at Tina. So Tina did say that, yes, I noticed that leasing agents let their guards all the way down, presenting myself as a realtor first. So again, just presenting yourself as not actually owning the company. You're like, hey, I'm the CEO of XYZ and I'm looking for corporate leasing. Again, they just let their guard down a little more. And then Tina says that she actually delegated some of the calling tasks to a friend of hers and had her introduce herself as a sourcing specialist for her company. Most were then more than happy to answer any questions and email applications if applicable. So again, presenting yourself as someone is like, I'm the sourcing specialist, I'm working on behalf of XYZ or my client who is actually your company, works really well, because again, it then lets the guard down as someone who you're trying to get around and sleazily kind of find a way to do Airbnb. It just creates an entirely different dynamic. So after they say all of that and they present their limitations, you're able to note that within your tracker. Great. All of this sounds really good. I'd like to move forward with submitting an application. This isn't necessarily exactly what you will be doing, but you want to move forward with seeing an application is what we're getting at. So you want to move forward with submitting an application. Can I access that online, or would you be able to email it my way? Again, this is showing that this question or this piece of it is actually speaking to the fact that you are someone who you do this often, because for some people, they actually know that you can access their applications online. So if this is something that you say in terms of, okay, can I access that online? Or is that something you'll have to email my way? It's speaking more to that factor, confirming that sourcing specialist kind of hat that we're putting on. Does that piece make sense? Okay, perfect. So that is if they are that person. Let's say that you are still up here and you're saying, would you be that person I speak with? And they say they are not that person. Okay, may I have the phone number or email address of who I can speak with? Our company is seeking to acquire a few units in whatever area they're in, and your units seem like the perfect fit. Again, even if they are not that person, getting the contact information, or at least getting them and confirming that they are going to follow up with you so that you can get that information. Now, let's say that you actually do have a little bit of time to more than just getting in, and I'm not even going to say you have time, but you you've called more than, let's say, 15 to 20 apartments. You're now comfortable with the conversation, and you want to kind of have a little bit more of an extended conversation with them. You are open to presenting a little more of your business model. At this point, this is just another script that you're able to follow. You start out, hey, I was browsing Facebook, your property website, wherever you were browsing, and I saw you all have a few vacancies. How soon would these units be available? Okay, cool. That's actually perfect. Are there multiple units available in that time frame? Again, this is kind of just speaking a little bit more to this sourcing specialist hat, right? Because you all are running a company. So let's say that they say yes or no. Okay, what have you? They say yes, perfect. Our team here at whatever your company name is actually looking for housing for a few of our, whoever you said your clients were. We all worked on this, right? Travel nursing, contractors, corporate clients, what have you. We are looking for housing for a few of our clients. Are there any corporate leasing agreements currently available with your complex? Again, this is just another way to ask them the same questions that we were just asking. Okay, so this is where you want to be prepared to possibly answer the question of what is it that you do? And this is typically where many people get caught up in terms of what is it that you do? What does your company do? This is where you want to keep it short. I will tell you 100% to keep it short. So let them know we seek corporate or master lease agreements in which we host our screened travel nurse guests, corporate leasing guests on a short-term basis. And we're pretty much just placing them within housing for a couple of weeks to maybe a few months, and that's it. You want to keep it very short. Don't get into the factor of how you are finding these clients just yet. Don't get into anything else. Just let them know that we seek corporate lease agreements and we are hosting screened guests on a short-term basis. And then at that point, again, there might be some additional questions that you are able to ask them following you answering that question. They may begin asking more questions to you. Again, there's not really a set direction this conversation can go. However, if they begin asking more questions of you, just let them know, again, you're just the sourcing specialist. If you don't have the answer to that question, actually, I'm going to have to go in and talk to somebody and we can get back to you. Is there an email that we can follow up with that information? Or if you want to ask more questions because the conversation's going good, this is somebody who they're really nice. They're sharing a ton of information. They're giving you everything you need. These are additional questions that you're then just able to ask to just fill that space, right? How soon is the apartment available? What is your policy on, I don't know, subleasing? What is your policy on pets? This is information, again, that is just going to help as you are getting your business up. Are you offering a lease signing deal? Many of you might know, but sometimes during certain parts of the year, they might offer no application fees. They might offer first month, second month free. Understanding what those deals are going to help as well, because sometimes they do not just say them to you. You are going to have to ask, are you offering a lease signing deal? What amenities does the apartment offer? This is, again, just a great time to ask about specific things that you might be looking for in an apartment that the website may not list. So let's say like how parking works, et cetera, et cetera. These are those questions. And pretty much, again, just ending it out. If they're like, okay, they've given you all the information you need. All right, thanks. I'll call you if I have some additional questions. Or thanks, when is a good time for me to actually view the apartment? Let's say that conversation went really well. You have all of the information you need and you're actually ready to view. It's a good idea to set up that tour while you're on the phone with that same person so that you can have that person give you the tour. Again, if that conversation went well, that is what that is going to look like. So again, just at